How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another video. And my name is Jose. I'm a pastor in Albany, Georgia. And today I'm speaking to you wherever you are. If you're at a church or if you are just watching this video as a standalone. And I hope that this video reaches you and that you're able to learn something new. Today we're going to be opening the Bible to the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 12, and we're going to be talking about loneliness. I think it's a very important topic, and I want to address it and kind of compare it with an experience that I had twice while I was a child. So let's get started, and let me start with a story. First things first, I don't want to blame my parents. They were young at this time. They did not have a lot of experience. I was the first child. And this can happen to anyone, but you may laugh or you may be infuriated because you're like, how can this happen twice? And it was like, were they trying to get rid of you? They weren't. It's just, I guess, an honest mistake twice. Same mistake, though. Let me start with the story and stop boring you with the preamble. So when I was a child, I grew up in Nicaragua, and my hometown is Esteli, and the capital is Managua. You may see this in different towns, like, you maybe live in a rural town. I live in a, kind of decent rural town, Albany, Georgia, Florida. I know Steven Sigamani, he's a pastor down there, and he lives in Avon Park and Sebring. And some of you may be watching this actually from that congregation. So you live there in a rural town. I lived in Esteli. You go to Managua. So the equivalent for Georgia will be Atlanta. The equivalent for Florida will be Orlando or Miami, right? Like you drive from a rural town, you go maybe about 2 hours, and you get to a better town that has metroplexes, malls, and stores, and everything imaginable, right? Everything is better in the bigger towns, supposedly. But we get to this town, and of course we go to the mall, and this is the first time around we go into a store. So we go into a store, and at this time around, one of the newest consoles had just came out at the time, the equivalent of the PS5 and Xbox. Of course, at the time, it was very different. There was this thing called a GameCube or a Nintendo 64. Those were the consoles of my day. And I was so excited as a child to go and try it out, right? I was playing Mario Kart. So my parents came with me. My mom went to a store, and my dad went to another store, right? And I was in the Nintendo and the video game store. So I was playing. An hour and a half passes by. My parents all of a sudden realize that I'm not with either of them. So my mom thinks that I'm with my dad. My dad thinks that I'm with my mom. And of course, I am not with either of them, and they start panicking. They go around, they're like, one of them is in their stores. Like my mom is in, clothing stores. My dad is in like watches or like, tools and stuff like that. And they all of a sudden realize that I'm not with either of them because they met and they were like, I thought that he was with you. I thought that he was with you, right? And they start trying to find me. They get to the video game store. I'm still playing Mario Kart. Great. I'm having the time of my life. It's about an hour and a half that I've been playing there. But I didn't realize it. Well, we go back home a couple of, days. We go back home. A couple months later, we, come back to the capital. So we go to the mall. And as a child, of course, I'm thinking, hey, I want to go to the video game store. Right? I want to play this game. So we go to the video game store again. This time, my uncle was around. He's going to be the saving grace of the story. And I'm playing video games. This time it's not Mario Kart, but it's Super Smash Bros., which has made a comeback in the Nintendo Switch, but that's a story for another day. So, I enjoy games. I go to the store, I'm playing, I'm having a blast. But all of a sudden, I realize that my parents are not there. And my uncle is also not there. Again, they had gone to their stores. My uncle is in his stores, my dad's in his stores, and my mom is also in her stores, right? And I am in mine. But all of a sudden, I realized that my parents are not with me. So last time around, they didn't realize that I was with them. This time around, I realized that I'm not with them. They don't realize it themselves yet until a little bit later. And of course, at the end of the day, I'm still here. So my parents are still there. And it's a kind of like a happy story, right? They're able to find me. But I want to talk about that little period right there where I came to realize that I was lost. I came to realize that I needed the protection of my parents. I realized that my parents were not with me and I did not know where they were. This is a time where there is no text messages. There is nothing, even comparable to a cell phone, a, mobile cell phone at this time. If you want to make a phone call, you had to, put some coins in a public telephone if you want to. Some of you may not understand those references, but some of you may. And here's the reality. At the time, I was really scared. I was about maybe 5, 6 years old. In these two instances, one of them, I didn't care because I didn't realize it. But there was a moment when I came to realize it and I felt lost. I felt lost. I felt lonely. I felt afraid. And I think those are the feelings that we're feeling right now. At least some of us have started to feel them, especially in our communities. But, the story continues. I go to, try to find them. I go to this store, I go to that store. And all of a sudden, as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, I start crying because, well, my parents are not there. My uncle is not there. I'm not able to find anybody. Thankfully, nothing bad happened. There was a security guard that came and, he took me to his post. We were sitting there and, I was just crying my eyes out and trying to figure it out. The security guard was trying to ask the people, he was kind of like in the middle of the mall and he was just asking the people, hey, do you know who this child is? Yada, yada, yada. All of a sudden, my uncle finds me and then my parents come. And as my uncle finds me, then I feel secure again because I see a face that I recognize. I see somebody that I can trust. My parents get there, they get relief again. They're like, oh my goodness. My uncle kind of like scolds them and tells them, you need to take care of him. Like, I'm the first child, I'm the firstborn, right? So we go through a lot, trials and errors from our parents, but this is the second error, and of course, it's two different experiences. And I think this is something that has happened to us as we have been managing the pandemic. So in the beginning, it was a little bit more like my sense of self from the first story. So I was lost, but I didn't know it. So the pandemic started, it kind of felt different. It kind of felt like a relief, right? It was like, oh, this feels nice. It's a little break from society. I don't have to go to school. I don't have to go to work as often. I can do stuff from home. Yeah, this feels good, work from home. But all of a sudden, things start to become evident that were not evident before. We start realizing that it's a little bit more stress to be home. It's a little bit more strain to not see your loved ones, to be in your community, social events, basketball tournaments, in your just youth groups and church communities. Just going and sitting down to church feels like such a blessing nowadays because we haven't done it for such a long time. Maybe you're also on the other side of the spectrum where you're welcoming all of these changes. You don't have to go to church, right? You don't have to have this kind of fakeness that church provides, and things. But something that is increasing, regardless of whichever your experience is with the pandemic, is that we're starting to become a little bit more isolated from each other. And of course, in the beginning, it was all about health. It was about, hey, I don't want to, pass down the virus if I have it, or I don't want to get, sick if you have it. So let's just meet over the phone. And, there goes over the phone, over the phone, over the phone. No more time socially attending restaurants. No more time going to church and, just arguing about something or talking about something from the Bible, and different things. And we have gotten used to this. Hey, being by myself is not that bad. But as with time passes, right, as with my second story, we are becoming aware that loneliness is real. That looking at our screens for extended period of times is not great. That just, personal interactions are just not the same. Now, if you have a significant other, or if you have a family, this may be a little bit less or kind of evident to you because you're talking with your significant other, you're so in love, right? Or you have a family and you have some distractions to play around or responsibilities to do. But some of you and myself, I know that I experienced this, hey, I'm just home and I'm just kind of like by myself, scrolling, texting, looking at YouTube videos like this one or other content. And all of a sudden you start realizing that this is messed up. This is not how it's supposed to be. Now, the Bible has a lot to say about loneliness. It has a lot of things to say, such as God will be there for you. God will help you. God is, your fortress in a time of need. He's your counselor, mighty, Prince of Peace, all of the beautiful things. And while that is true, as humans, we need other humans. And today's passage, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, I hope that reminds us of that. So let's open the Bible and let's read a couple verses. It says, 1 Corinthians 12, from 12 and on, "For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in one Spirit we were all baptized into the body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and all were made to drink of one Spirit. For the body does not consist of one member, but of many." As you may know, and as you have your body and you may be able to see it, you have different parts. You have your hands, your feet, your eyes, your heart. And magically it works. We don't do much to make it work except, make sure to eat, sleep, and do other things like exercise from time to time. But all of a sudden, Paul brings this analogy. So the book of 1 Corinthians, written by Paul to the Corinthian church. The Corinthian church was a very divided church. It was a church that they thought that they could do it all by themselves. They were very prideful and they had a bunch of other issues. I invite you to read the whole book. But in this specific part, Paul talks about the importance of a community, the importance of hanging out with other people, and the importance of making sure that everybody is a part of the body of Christ. In other words, a part of the church. I think the church has done a poor job as of 2020 to make sure that everyone feels included. Not everyone feels included at church. Not everyone feels included in social groups either. It's kind of normal. You click with the people that you click. You kind of don't like the people that you don't like. But Paul invites us to welcome everyone. Now, what does this have to do with loneliness? I think what it has to do with loneliness is that as we continue to navigate this pandemic, we're going to need one another even more. I have been researching a little bit, especially when I wanted to talk about this topic of loneliness, and I've been able to see some of the new articles and scholarly publications and even books that are coming out. And they're all dealing with loneliness. They're dealing with loneliness, anxiety, depression, and they're putting a lot of figures out there that are quite interesting. But something that came to my brain, as I was reading these things and as I was analyzing what they were saying, is that we're still in that state that I was in my first story. It was a state of kind of like denial, but kind of unawareness. I was not aware. I was not aware that I was lost. And then it clicked in my second story, of course. It clicked that I was aware all of a sudden and I felt lost. I felt unprotected. So right now we are in a very dormant state. You may be thinking, I don't feel lonely. I don't have a problem. I'm not anxious. I'm not depressed, But I invite you that you do an exercise with me. It is interesting to kind of categorize loneliness. And another thing that they're doing in the scholarly articles that all of these psychologists and people that know way more than me can explain you better. So I invite you that you Google them. I'll probably put a couple of resources in the description below and provide some questions at the end for you guys to discuss. But essentially, something that I came to realize was that in these scholarly articles, one of the indicators of people that are lonely or people that are depressed or people that are anxious is their screen time. So the more screen time you have, whenever you hit that point of awareness, the worst you'll feel about yourself. So people who are having low screen time and a lot of interaction with other human beings are generally again, more satisfied, less anxious, less depressed. People that have a lot of screen time usually will feel more depressed, more anxious, and more stressed, and of course, lonelier. It is kind of a paradox that we have these amazing tools, social media and, YouTube and Discord, Reddit, TikTok, whatever social media that you may use. And while there is a connection, there is a little bit of a hit. You may be or maybe have listened to a couple of the videos that talk about dopamine, right? Like, whenever you get a like, you feel good. Like, yeah, yay, a like. But all of a sudden, if you post a picture and you don't get that nice affirmation, that couple of likes here and there, you're still feeling a little bit like, what's wrong? Does no one like me anymore? So all of these articles talk about this kind of correlation between screen time, right, and loneliness, anxiety, and depression. Of course, there's other factors. Of course, there is other things that are happening in the background in your life. I am not going to say that I know exactly what you're going through. You may be going through divorce from your parents. You may be going through dropping out of high school or college. You may be going through, somebody bullying you or somebody doing all of these things, right? Like, to you that, or maybe you feel unsafe in today's America because of all the stuff that is happening. Maybe you don't feel protected from the community, from the government. You don't feel like you belong. And most of all, you may feel like you're rejected by your own church. The people that are supposed to love you and protect you, they may not be doing that. So whatever it is that you feel, I want to maybe encourage an exercise from you. This week, take your phone. You may have an iPhone or you have an Android. They both have the functions to do this. Check out your screen time. Check out in the last week, what was your screen time? Think about how many hours you spent in front of the screen watching other people's content, interacting with other people, maybe on messages or, TikTok, Messenger, Instagram, DMs, whatever it is, and compare it to your kind of feelings that you're having in your life. Maybe think about those times where, like, what am I doing with my time off, with my non-screen time, right? Am I just sleeping? And then all of a sudden 16 hours go by and I feel like, hey, I am good. I do 16 hours of screen time, 8 hours of sleep. I'm good to go. Or maybe ask yourself if you need more human interactions. Paul continues in verse 15. If the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would be the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. We live in community. We are meant to be social beings. And while social media can kind of give us a placebo effect, an effect that is, it allows us to connect with people that are far, far away. It allows us to see others and interact with others from different parts of the world or loved ones that we may not be able to see. Technology is a great tool, but it is just that. It is a tool. In my estimation and what I experienced during this time is that it cannot replace the real thing. For me, technology, maybe for you, it is replacing it right now. But for me, technology cannot replace the real world interactions. I miss being with my friends. I miss seeing church members. As a pastor, I miss doing the long visitations, and like just sitting down, eating with people, having a good time, and just kind of interacting. While we're able to do more of that nowadays, we're also more restricted. But I miss those times. I miss that because I think it's important to recognize that we are the body of Christ. We as a church are supposed to help others, and we are supposed to welcome and accept everyone. Loneliness is a real issue, and I am not an expert about it. I'm not going to try to say I am. But I want to offer a couple of thinking questions that you may be able to discuss. Because in my experience and in what I see in the scholarly articles that I've been reading, it seems that it's a ticking time bomb right now for our depression, anxiety, and loneliness. We may not realize how big of a problem it is in our lives until it's too late. Until we're lost like I was in the mall, crying, asking for help, and saying, where are my parents? In this case, where is my community? Where are my friends? I feel so connected to them, through these mediums of Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, yet I am disconnected totally. It is a very interesting time that we live in, but we don't have to go through it alone. We are increasingly in a society that allows us to just do everything virtual. And while that is a positive thing, we need to find time to be with one another. Maybe socially distanced for, the reasons of the pandemic, but with one another nonetheless, eating at a distance, waving at a distance, talking at a distance, but just seeing others and making sure that we're the body of Christ together. I wanted to finalize by reading this, and then I'll give you a couple of questions to think about. And this is kind of like, once we realize that we need each other, we also need to realize that everybody has different functions. In verse 28, 28, it says, "And God has appointed in the church first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then miracles, then gifts of healing, helping, administrating, and various kinds of tongues." The last portion of this passage, when it comes to Paul's kind of like ideas he's trying to give to the Corinthians, he's trying to help them understand that, well, we are one body, we are also members, and everybody has their own responsibility. You may be an introvert or an extrovert. You may like having friends around all the time, or maybe just have a couple of them that you have meaningful relationships with. So as a part of the discussion questions that I will give you right now, I hope that you're able to talk about this, and, hopefully you're not just brushing it off and being like, oh, the pastor is just trying to like make us, do this or whatever. But I hope that you take into consideration that we need one another in order to survive, and we need one another in order to become better people. You will sharpen me, and hopefully I will sharpen you, because that's what is necessary in friendships, companionships, and also in the body of Christ. We need to be there for one another and stop the loneliness epidemic. So 3 things that I would like for you to think about and discuss is, maybe with a friend or someone else, is, have you realized that you feel lonely? So are you aware of the problem? So if you felt lonely, if over the last couple of months, maybe you realized it and maybe you've been able to fix it with different things, share those. Share your weak points in this pandemic, the points where you felt very distressed, lonely, and anxious, and share what did you do. Number 2 is kind of like a challenge and maybe discussion time, is what's your screen time? Is it, and this is not for comparison. It's not like, oh, my screen time is better than yours, right? No, but like, talk about that. Talk about what kind of goes into the decisions that you're making. Is it that you're spending a lot of time in this app because it's something that you're doing with it? Or is it just because you're mindlessly scrolling? So pull out your phones, talk about your screen time, and be honest. Why are you using it? When are you using it? Do you see a pattern? Like, I use Instagram at this time of the day, and because it makes me feel such a way, or maybe because somebody posts. I watch these YouTube videos every so often, or I'm subscribed to this channel, and every time they release at 8 p.m., I watch it because whatever, it gives me this feeling. And you may need help with that because social media addiction is a real thing, or you may not, and you may be able to help somebody else. So first one is, are you aware of the problem? Number 2 is, talk through your screen time with one another. Be like, man, I spent a lot of time, whatever it is. And number 3 is, how can we make more activities? How can we meet during this time? What are some of the activities that we can do weekly, monthly, every so often, so that I'm checking in with somebody else? And I am not encouraging, this is something that I'm hoping that we are able to kind of like not get rid of, but like kind of transition out. Usually churches will be like, they'll pair you up with a buddy for like spiritual companionship, prayer, and stuff like that. While that is good, I would like to kind of encourage you to think about more group events where you have to invite other people and that you're able to just bring others to this body of Christ that is the church. So talk about your screen time, talk about are you aware of the problem, and also talk about what can we do as people, to maybe do a watch party together, or maybe meet at a physical location distance and go over the things that are going through in our minds and be a support for our community and for each other. Sorry if it was a little bit longer than you expected, but I hope that you're able to think about all these things and that you're aware of the issues that are surrounding us. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.